that's where we kind of lead into like all of that kind of really falls into like being coachable and being able to take feedback and apply it. And I think for a lot of people, that's a challenge. Like, you know, not just talking about athletes, just, you know, in life, a lot of people, we don't like taking feedback and criticism and then applying it. And I think those who are open to it and like welcome the feedback, I think a lot of people, those people have success and do well.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to a very special interview. Today, I get to introduce you to Matt Lisle. Now, Matt, I'm going to say hey here in a minute, but for those of you who don't know Matt, you need to check him out. We're going to put all links to all things social, website, everything in the show notes so you connect with him because he's doing some amazing things. Now, Matt is recognized as the internet's most followed baseball and softball coach. We're diving into a few of those things today, me being a baseball guy, but he's literally coached at every level in both baseball and softball. I mean, starting little league to travel ball, high school, NAIA Division 3, 2, 1, and Major League Baseball with the Chicago White Sox. He has built an amazing social media following of over 1 million plus followers. And it's about storytelling. It's about talking coaching. It's about helping student athletes and athletes at all levels perform to their best. His story is amazing. We're going to talk a little bit about this, but from being homeless in 2010 to fulfilling his lifelong dream of coaching in the major leagues with the Chicago White Sox, he's overcome countless numbers of adversity in pursuit of these ultimate goals. And it's to inspire others now to never stop believing. He is the author of a book called Dear Coach, Amazon bestseller, by the way, which is amazing look into the world of youth sports. Parents in particular, you know, the number one complaint I get from coaches is parents, FYI, and dealing with that. But without further ado, Matt, welcome to the interview. Thanks for taking the time with me.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Matt.
This is great. Well, I want to start and just hear from you because you've, like you said, coached at all levels and you continue to coach, right, as assistant softball coach at Oregon State University amongst all the other businesses that you're running and influence on social media. But like, why do you coach? Where's the passion come from for you?
Wow. You know, for me, I came from a line of coaches. My grandfather coached college football for 38 years. And so I was just around it a lot. My dad coached me growing up and was a good coach. And so I was just around it a lot growing up. I never thought of it as a career or a job at any point until I got into it. But as a coach, I think for me, what draws me to it is just, there's nothing better than trying to help someone achieve something else and getting to be on the sidelines and rooting for that to happen. For me, it's just really life-giving when you when you can help someone achieve their goals and celebrate that with them. I think team sports and even individual sports allow you to engage with people that way. So not only do you get to cheer them on and help them reach their goals, but you get to be a part of it. You get to celebrate the wins and share in the losses in a sense. And so it's just relationally, it fills the tank a lot. And I think if you're a teacher, spirited person, and a parent, you get the feeling, the feeling of helping someone to achieve what they're trying to do. And I think to me, that's the fun of coaching.
Yeah, that's awesome, right? I'm such a big believer in that too, right? It's like, how do you, I don't know, show someone what's possible, right? And it could be just one little phrase or one little tweak to a swing or one little this moment that could change everything, right?
Yep.
Do you have, this is a big question, but are there one or two memories from a coaching perspective that, I don't know, just stick out to you as just the most memorable for you?
Number one, most memorable for me is an easy one, really. In 2017-18, I was this hitting coach for softball at the University of South Carolina. And a few months before the season, our first baseman's father was killed in a car accident. It was really tough. I mean, he was a young guy, probably the same age as me. He was at every game. He drove, 14-hour games. I mean, he was like the epitome of the best, sports dad you could imagine. Yeah. Actually visited him in the hospital before he passed. I mean, it was rough obviously on her more than anyone, but so that happens in before the season starts, and we get to the season. We had an incredible season. It was like just like a Cinderella story. Ended up having this incredible run, but at the end of the year, we get to the regionals, NCAA regionals, and we're playing against Hofstra, and we're down to our last out. We're going to get upset. We're going to lose, and we're down to our last out. We're down by a run, and this girl Jana Johns, she gets on base by a walk, and we're all kind of just sitting in the dugout, just praying and hoping, how you do, but before Jana walked and got on first base, I'll be honest with you, in my mind, I was going through what I was going to say at the end of the game to the team, like, great season, I'm proud of you guys. Like, I had kind of accepted the fact that, like, hey, this is a 5% chance at best that we're going to come back and win this game. There's nobody on. We're down by a run. This pitcher has dominated us all day. So Jana, this freshman, she walks, and up comes Kristen White, our first baseman whose dad passed away. And I kid you not, I kind of looked up and I said, hey, Buck, her dad's name was Buck. I said, Buck, we could really use you here. And the next thing you know, 2-run walk-off home run by Kristen White. And
seriously,
like, every one of us is like, excited. We're going on to super regionals. It's the most exciting, but like, we're all crying. I mean, it was just like the most insane moment as a coach and like, as a father and just everything. And it's just like, I will, to this day, I'll never forget that whole entire game, that moment. The sent us to super regionals. Like, it was just like, you could write a movie just about
yes.
that whole thing. And so like, for me, it just stands out as the most incredible experience that I got to be a part of that, share with that. And to me, that stands out as the most memorable moment of my coaching career.
That's amazing. That's what an amazing memory and what an amazing result, right? In like a really tough moment when you're expected to win and not, and like to have that story. That's incredible. It
really was.
So you strike me as a person who has a like pretty close relationship with the players that you coach. And you talk to me a little bit about that, because I think there's this, I don't know, we're coaching, and I don't think it matters if you're at the high school level, collegiate level, pro level, even like the younger, like youth sports kind of, right? We talk about building that relationship and the importance of it, but then you see coaches with varying degrees of that relationship. So what are your thoughts around the importance of that or not, or like what's your kind of philosophy around that?
To me, it's everything. I really think that in order to get the best out of our players and our teams, that relationship is everything. And so, and what I mean by that is like, it's really hard, especially nowadays you have parents, coaching your kid from the stands and at the kitchen table when you're not around as a coach. And so, for me, I think that in order for us to, if we're telling a player to do something, to buy into a philosophy or change something in their swing or anything they're doing, if they trust you as a coach, they know that you love them, that you want the best for them, and that you're trying to actually help them. Their ability to receive that and to actually implement what you're trying to do is, in my experience, 100 times what it would be if there wasn't a relationship. And so for me, in life in general, if a stranger comes up to you and says, you need to change your life, you need to do X, Y, and Z, your first reaction is going to be, who are you? I don't know you. Why are you speaking into my life? But if like your best friend or a parent or a mentor, someone comes to you and says, hey, I think you should do X, Y, and Z because this will better your life. You're much more likely to receive that and go, hey, this person knows me. They love me. They care about me. They're giving me feedback or criticism or advice. I'm going to listen to that a lot more. So I take that same approach when I'm working with players. And I think that you have to build trust. You have to build a relationship. Otherwise, we're just telling people what to do. I just don't think we can get to the fullest extent of a person's ability or potential without building a relationship.
I agree. And are there some ways that there's a lot of roadblocks with some of those relationships, right? So a lot of things, especially when you talk, baseball and softball world, and I open this up, not specific to those sports, right? I think this is true of every sport, right? But when you look at, like, I've got my club coach versus my high school coach, or I have this travel coach versus, like, I play in multiple teams, all these different things, right? And I think that's true in hockey, volleyball, tons of different sports, right?
Yep.
We have this, I care about you. Both coaches care about you, but like, who do you listen to and those sorts of things? So let me take a step back for a minute, like before we go maybe to that route. But when you're trying to build a relationship with an athlete, maybe we start there first, right? And then we bring in this whole club, high school thingy that's going on. But what have you done to like help build that trust? Because I think sometimes like words are thrown around like, let's build trust. And we're like, totally. I got it. But how the heck do you do it, right? What's worked well for you, Matt, in kind of building that long-term relationship?
Yeah, so some of it is, especially early on, just being vulnerable and honest. And so for me, one of the first exercises we always do at the beginning of the year, or I do, is I start by like, you do the old icebreakers, and it's like, oh, I'm this person. Well, we do one that's kind of fun. It's like, if you really knew me. And so for me, example, if you really knew me, you would know I'm a huge nerd. I love Harry Potter and Star Wars and Disneyland, and like I'm a geek or a nerd, whatever the actual, whatever the term is. And so I always ask the players to try to say something that nobody knows about you, and so we kind of start with there. But for me, it's really just about just trying to build a relationship as you would if you're trying to, meet a friend or something like that. And I think the biggest problem I think that a lot of teams and coaches do is they don't understand how time works. So for example, in Division I level, a lot of times we have 20-hour weeks that we're allowed to work with our players. And like high school coaches, maybe they have 15 hours a week, or a travel ball coach has 5 hours a week, or maybe it's 2 hours a week. Yes. As coaches, we tend to want to use all 20 hours for practice and technical learning and thinking like the X's and O's. This is how we're going to get better. To me, the best coaches, the best programs, the best relationships spend a good portion of their time, an hour or two a week of their schedule, whatever that percentage is, in the classroom, or getting to know each other, or we meet with our players every few weeks. It's a 15-minute meeting with me. Hey, what's going on? How's school? What's life going on? And trying to really get to know them as people and not just as athletes. And I think when we can allow our athletes to have an identity outside of being an athlete or just a player on the team, and they know that. I mean, sometimes it just takes time. But that, I've had a couple of players on our team this last year that built really great relationships with. They did a really good job of having relationships with my 11-year-old daughter and my 7-year-old son. And some of those players came to their games. Some of them spent some time with them and take them out to ice cream. And so, for me, I know that I'm doing a good job relationally if my players are willing to hang out with my kids, take them out to ice cream, or come to one of their little league games, or do a lesson with them. It's at some level. So I know that they like me enough that there's some relationship there. So for me, it's just spending the time. Take off a percentage of your practice time that you got to work on the same drill for the 100th time, and get together and sit. And I think Clemson football does a great job of it. They have what's called the safe seat. They have a player sit in the middle of the circle, and it's like this, it's the trust tree, and you're not going to share anything outside of here, but the entire team can ask them questions to get to know them, or the coaches can say tell us a story about this, or tell us about your family, or something like that. And I just think the more and more we get to know them, the more information we have about them, the more we can have those conversations. And I just think that coaches spend way too much time at practice and outside of practice talking about the athlete as a athlete, instead of saying, hey, this is an actual person, and getting to know that person, and loving them and caring about them. And that's the approach that has worked for me.
I really like that. And, I think you read all the sports psychology books too, right? I was just reading last night, The Inner Game of Tennis. I think I haven't read it in a long time, but it's a really great book, right? But one thing it talks about, and this is true of all sports psychology, is you have to separate the person from the result, right? And that you're more than that, and this is just something you do, and that brings a calm, it takes pressure away. There's all sorts of things behind it. But I was just reading that last night, right? And to your point, you're making me think of I think every athlete goes through this identity crisis at some point, right? Because for me, it was taken away after I tried out, was cut. All of a sudden, now I don't know who I am, right? And it's that understanding of you are an amazing person. You're a lot more than that. And it's my job as a coach to start helping you see that, right? And just understanding more about you, things like that. I think it's such a critical point. And I love just taking a percentage, whatever that is. That's such great advice. Take a percentage and figure out, is that 10%, 5%, 20%, whatever it is, and like use that time intentionally to get to know your players, whether that's one-on-one in a team setting. Like, I love that advice.
Yeah, and the biggest thing I would say on that piece and advice to anyone listening is that as much as you can, take that away from the field. So like, some of the best experiences I've had with players is taking them to an escape room, having barbecues at the house. Because it's college, there's been a couple of times where I took a team the day before a trip. We went to Disneyland one time. One time I took a team to spring training the day before and met with some of the major league players I worked with. And so like find ways to engage with your team and do fun activities and build memories off the field and away from the field. To me, that's where the good stuff happens, and it doesn't take much. You don't have to take your team to Disneyland, right, but you can host a barbecue or a movie night or a game night. I mean, we've done Olympics before. It has some of the most fun memories possible doing just funny, goofy Olympic type games at my house. And like I said, there's always ways that you can connect with your team. And I think when you get away from the field and do those things and everyone lets their guard down a little bit, it's just an entirely different experience.
It's so good. It's so good. I think it's funny when you said Disneyland, I'm sure some high school coaches listening are like, oh no, like we don't have a budget for shoes. Like, how am I going to take them to Disneyland? But to your point, like you can do things like the team nights, like the little bonding stuff you can do outside that, doesn't cost a lot of money or any money, right? To do some of that stuff, just get creative with it.
Yep.
I think that's huge. So real quick question, because I want to get on to like kind of motivating athletes a little bit, but back to we look at like if I'm playing for multiple teams and I have multiple coaches involved, I guess, have you seen that? Have you experienced that when you're playing for a club in like a high school or something, or multiple teams? And when we're talking about building trust and like one coach is telling you to switch your swing this way and the other coach is telling you to do it this way or whatever that, you're working on your sport, how do you, I guess as a coach, continue to build that trust, but maybe just even have openness to like, maybe they're going to take someone other's advice. Like what advice would you give coaches who are dealing with that? Cause it seems all over the place at this day and age.
I would say my stance has probably shifted in the 24 years of being a coach. I think as a young coach, I was like, I'm the only coach and no outside coaches. And if you have an outside coach, you're in trouble. And my way or the highway. Now I embrace it because everyone has it. Parents, coaches, they got private coaches, even at the college level. And I'll tell you, at the major league level, I've dealt with a lot of dads. So like it's out there at every single level. So it's not just, I would say high school and travel ball is probably the most common, but at the college and pro level, it happens just as much. So, but my advice, I embrace it. And what I mean by that is I embrace the conversation. Okay, who are you talking to? What are you working on? And trying to be open and to what they're doing. And maybe maybe because they're doing different terminology or something like that, it sounds different, but maybe working on the same thing. Or I'll ask them, hey, what? We're trying to work on this. He's saying to work on that. There's I think there's some conflict there. How do we solve it? Or if it's working, the person that's helping them or whatever they think they're doing is helping, and they, then I'll let them do it. For me, the rule I've always had with my players is that you can do it your way all you want, as long as you have success. As soon as you are doing your own thing or listening to these other voices and you are struggling and you're not having success and it seems in conflict to what we're trying to accomplish, then we're going to have a conversation. Then we're going to say, okay, well, I'm going to start maybe shielding you from that thing a little bit more, saying, I really need you to do it my way at this point. And I've given you, plenty of opportunities to do it your way. And what I mean by that is like, the goal is for the athlete to have success or to win the game or to win the match. And so like if at some point in their own journey of doing it themselves with their other coaches, I feel like it's getting away from that, that's when we're going to have the conversation. But for the most part, as long as we have really open conversations about it, one of the things I always tell my college players is that you can always call BS on me. One of the first things I say at the beginning of the year is you can always call BS. And what I mean by that is if they say, like, they hear me say something and their first reaction is like, my dad wants me to do it differently, or my travel ball coach told me to do this. My old coach told me not to do that. They have to be able to say, hey, coach, I hear what you're saying, but this. And 90% of the time, it comes down to like a lack of understanding of what I'm trying to teach them, or like, their dad told them to do this or this and that. And I'm like, yeah, we're saying the same thing. Like that really is the case a lot of times.
Yes.
Other times it's like, okay, well, I hear you. What about, I'm willing to listen to what you're saying. Are you willing to be open to what I am teaching you? And like, again, I think just having the conversation, allowing them to be able to raise their hand and go, yeah, coach, I don't agree. Because if you don't allow that, as soon as I say, do this, do that, and they nod their heads and say, yes, coach, to me, that's one of the worst things. I think back in the day, that's what we wanted them to do. Nod their head, say, yes, coach. Nowadays, I hate that because to me, what they're saying is, okay, coach, yeah, I hear what you're saying. You want me to nod my head and say yes, but I'm not buying in, or I'm doing my own thing, or I'm not going to do that. And if they walk away and I don't know what that is or what their conflict is or what the problem is, in that thing, then they're not getting better. I'm not getting better. And so I really, really push them as hard as I can to be open and to call BS when they need to, and know that I've never yelled at a player for coming to me and saying, coach, I disagree with what you're saying, and so yes. I think that's really important to allow your athletes to be able to come to you and say, hey, you know what? My travel ball coach wants me to do this. Okay, let's talk about it and start from there and see where it goes.
So the way you phrase something just a little bit ago, I want to point out, and I think it's so important. So you're talking about that player calling BS on you, right? And you saying, I hear you. And then you paused. And then you said, are you open to me talking to you about this, and just having that discussion? The pause in there was the subtle thing that not a lot of people pick up. You could have said, I hear you, but I hear you, however. And that subtlety, and I don't even know if you're aware of it, but it's so powerful because as soon as you put a but or however after a statement, you psychologically, you negate everything that happened before it. So you could say, I hear you, I love you, you're amazing, you're incredible, but they forget everything you said and they're just listening for what's coming next, right? But you need to do it this way, right? I'm not saying that's...
Yeah, no. My go-to is actually, having said that, ...
It's so good. But it's like the subtleties, I think, is so critical, right? Of creating that openness and the discussion with that athlete to say, I'm not going to shut you down. I'm going to be open. Let's talk about it. And I think that's where, I don't know if you feel this way, but sometimes I think as athletes, when we go to our coach, they say, yeah, but, and so we feel defeated. It's like every time we go to that coach, he or she is just going to throw that word. I mean, that's nothing against the word but or however, but well, it really is, I guess, because I just used the word but. Do you see that do you think that's a reason that players don't come to coaches? It has to do with trust, first of all, I think your earlier point. But B, how do we as coach maintain that openness or that?
Yeah, that's part of it. I think, I have had issues with it in my career and I feel like I've gotten better, but I think for me and for a lot of coaches, I think the tone that they deliver things in is probably the biggest, at least for me, the biggest reason I think sometimes players stay away. I mean, if you're a player and you come to the coach and say, call BS or, question anything, and the coach's, tone or reaction is emotional or anger, frustration, these type of things, then the player's not going to come to you anymore like that you burn them in that sense. So I know for me, I am a lot of times very matter of fact, boom, 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 let's move around. And I don't realize sometimes that my tone can come off as strict in a way versus, having the posture of just a little, lighter tone. And so for me, I think coaches have to be really careful about how they react. And I think, as human beings, our first inclination is to get defensive. And I think, I've had talks with my players about this, hey, if I come to you with something about accountability or something that happened, your first reaction cannot be defensive. And I think coaches do that more than anybody is player calls BS or questions something. And coach, why are we doing this? Or I don't see the benefit to this. And the coach gets defensive or yells or gets frustrated. Again, the player's okay. Well, I know I'm not going to waste my time coming to coach anymore because I don't want to get chewed out or I don't want to get talked angry to. So coaches, we've got to do a much better job. And something I've worked on in the last few years is when a player comes to us, we go, okay, hear that. and let me chew on that. And everyone's kind of different. Some of us are quick-witted and can like right away respond, or like, oh, heck, hey, I hear you. Let me think about that and I'll get back to you. To me,
Yes.
Even if you don't have an answer to it, or like you're frustrated, or like your inclination is to like get defensive, even if you can just go, hey, I hear you. Let me think about that and get back to you. That gives you that time to process it, to figure out how you want to respond. And then you could say to the player at the end of practice or another time, hey, remember we talked about this? I want to come back and talk about that. And that way you're validating that you're listening to them, but you're also, following up and having a solution to it or a conversation with it. And I think that invites athletes to come and talk much more than just, yelling at them or barking at them or getting defensive.
Yes. Such a good point. I think just in life, right? I tend to do the same thing, right? Get defensive right away. And that's where our brains are built. And it's a beautiful thing, but it can be a detrimental thing at the same time, if not understood and used based on the situation. So good. When you look at the programs you've been with, and maybe we talk about Oregon State, if I'm a, high school athlete looking to go to the Division I level or college, or if I'm, a collegiate player looking to get to the professional level, like what in your mind, like what types of players are you looking for? What type of attributes are you looking for? What are the types of players that stand out that how would you describe that to a high school athlete, any athlete looking to get to that next level?
Yeah. So, I think every level is different. Like I said, I've coached at every level. I would say, here's the thing, at the Division I level and above, like, and I hate to say it to burst some bubbles out there, but like you have to have talent. And so like athletes have to be talented like that this level. Now at the NAIA level and D2 level, JUCO level, I think you still have to have some talent, obviously. But like, I have a younger brother who's a policeman now, and he was the hardest working athlete I've ever been around. In high school, he would go out to the gym at 6 a.m. on his own. No one told him to be hitting and working out. And in junior college, same thing. And he played a little bit of NAIA baseball. He had the work. I've never seen an athlete work, and he had enough talent to get to like the NAIA, JUCO level. But that's kind of that. No matter how hard he worked, he was not going to play at a higher level than that. So like, I just want to be clear. Like, it does take talent.
Yes.
That's if you're deciding to go to the higher levels, like that's the biggest filter for us as coaches. And thanks to the transfer portal and all that stuff is a whole other thing. Like, It makes it even harder for high school athletes to get to that level because they're competing against much older kids. So that'd be the first thing. But after that, again, so the second thing is like strong work ethic and, how hard they work. And for nowadays, I'll tell you, I've got 5 kids. Like, they want to be on the iPad and on YouTube all day long. And like, it's different than the times are different.
Yes.
Another way of saying that. And so like, you have to work really hard, and you have to work really hard on your own without anybody telling you. And like, it's becoming more and more rare. So that would be a strong work ethic. And like, part of that is your grades. Like if I recruit a student who's a 4.0 student, I know that their work ethic is really good, because if they're willing to be able to put in the work that it takes to have a 4.0, I at least know that I can trust them, that they can handle some responsibility. I know they can handle, when it gets to the college level, they can handle it. Versus a student has a 2.0, I know they don't take school serious.
Yes.
No matter how good of an athlete they are, I at least know that there's an area of their life that is not very disciplined. They don't put a lot of effort into it. And that is a red flag to me. And then I would say lastly, I think we look for athletes who have the growth mindset, in a sense that like, hey, coach, and they have a posture that they want to learn. Some of the best Major League Baseball players I've worked with, and some of the best college players I've worked with, even at the highest level, they're like, coach, teach me. I want to learn how to do this better. And they don't never settle for what level that they're at. And they never get comfortable, even no matter how good they are. They made the All-Star game, Major League All-Star game, which of the World Series, off season starts, and boom, they're after work and they're calling me like, hey, I want to get better at this. And I think those athletes are the ones that have success versus the ones who, okay, they got to some level of success. They feel good. Their parents are telling them they're great. The travel coach is telling them they're great. And then they just kind of coast. I've got, a player that I coached in high school, plays in the major leagues right now. I might have been up for the MVP last year. But going back to high school, he got his D1 scholarship, and his senior year, he just coasted. And I remember thinking, man, he's going to regret this. And, he ended up having a great college career, but like his senior year wasn't as successful and as memorable as he probably would like, because he signed his deal and then went to, so I think, like I said, the last thing we really look for is growth mindset, meaning that athletes who they never settle, they want to get better, and they're always looking at it from that standpoint of like, okay, how do I improve X, Y, or Z?
Mm. And that takes courage, that takes confidence to ask those questions and be curious and do those sorts of things, right?
Yep.
And I think the key thing I always tell people is what you're saying is like the best are doing this, so emulate what the best are doing. They're asking the question, even though if they like, how do I get better? And maybe they don't know. Maybe the coach doesn't even know, but at least it triggers some additional questions to ask of like, I wonder if we try this or do that. It takes courage to do that.
Yep. And I think, that's where we kind of lead into like all of that kind of really falls into like being coachable and being able to take feedback and apply it. And I think for a lot of people, that's a challenge. Like, not just talking about athletes, just, in life, a lot of people, we don't like taking feedback and criticism and then applying it. And I think those who are open to it and like welcome the feedback, I think a lot of people, those people have success and do well.
I love that. And I want to be aware of time. So 2 last questions for you. One, around your book, Dear Coach, what was the reasoning behind like why the book was necessary? Why you felt like right now I want to write this? Like, and I know you're giving advice to coaches and parents and things like that, but talk to us about why you wrote the book, and then what are some of the big kind of elements within it?
Yeah, it was really just a fun project. Cool. It was my dad's idea. He, all through my first 10 years of coaching, he would say to me all the time, one day I'm going to write a book about all the crazy emails I get from parents. And I'm like, great idea. So, I built this large following on social media. So I reached out to everybody and said, hey, I'm writing a book. It's going to be all about the crazy parent emails. And I got so many submissions. We started combing through them all. It chose like the top 30. And so then I took those crazy parent emails and I, added pieces like, hey, here's how I would have dealt with that email, or here's how I would have dealt with that situation, if you're a coach. And so, the book is, 90% funny. I mean, I think it's a coffee table, just like our bathroom read, in the sense of just like funny stories about parenting and coaching that we all just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that person did that. But hidden in there is a bunch of just notes from me saying, hey, here's how I would deal with that situation a little bit differently, or here's if a parent came to me with this problem, here's how I would deal with it. And so it's kind of a mix of just really funny stuff and also some coaching advice for those who come across that crazy email from the parents. And the only thing I'll add to this story is that the saddest part about all the submissions that I got was that a good portion, I'd say a quarter of the people who submitted the emails, I read those emails and said, I agree with the parent. And that's not a crazy parent email. That's a coach problem, not a parent problem. Good. And to me, that was surprising. I didn't expect that, but I remember reading a lot of them going, this isn't a parent problem. This is a coach problem. And the coach is the one turning in the email. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, this is about you. This is not a problem with the athlete or the parent. So there was quite a few of those that I was surprised happened.
Interesting. We'll have to do a whole episode on breaking some of those down. That would be tremendous amount of fun, because that's the thing too, right? It goes back to your statement, right? If do we have openness as coaches? Have we communicated the right way? Have we set expectations the right way? Which is a whole nother, episode and us spending time together. And then layer on, okay, questions are going to come now, right? But it's that, are we putting our defenses down, that defensive wall down, to be open to like how we can improve as a coach, things like that too.
Yep.
So interesting. Okay. Obviously, everyone watching, I highly recommend you pick up the book for sure. I'm going to go back through my emails and make sure I haven't sent anything weird to any coaches, of course. So hopefully I'm not in the book. But With that said, I'm just, so thankful for your time. And, last question, because I want people to connect with you and continue to grow. And I follow you everywhere now. But Matt, where can people best connect with you, and for the book, for the programs you have, for social media? What's the best way? Ways?
So the book is called Dear Coach. It's on Amazon and easy to find. If you're a baseball or softball person, coach or parent or player, my website is thehittingvault.com, and it's like the master class for hitting. It's kind of my life work put together in a master class, and I'm really proud of it. But if you're looking to connect for like parenting and coaching advice, you can just find me across all social media at Coach Lisle. And I share on there every day, either quotes or stories or advice for parents and coaches and athletes across. So that's just an easy way to connect with me and follow me. And that's about it.
That's awesome. And everyone watching, we'll have all this in the show notes. Please connect with Matt. I will tell you from personal experience, he's got amazing stuff out there. I probably followed you. You haven't known this, Matt, for quite a while. And then, just reached out because I'm like, I got to talk to this guy and move it from a virtual conversation to, I guess, a more personal virtual conversation. Hopefully in person one day. I'll get up to Corvallis or something to meet you face to face. But Matt, thank you so much. I truly can't appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on and thinking of me. And hopefully I brought your listeners some value and some tidbits that might help them. And again, I appreciate having me on. You
definitely have. Well, huge thanks to Matt. Again, everybody watching, please share this, tell your friends and family and your entire team about this, the parents and coaches that you work with. And let's spread this message as we build mentally tough athletes around the world. Thank you all for your time today, and we'll see you on the next interview.